Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever felt completely suffocated by the relentless ticking clock of the modern workday? You know the exact feeling, staring at a calendar that looks like a colorful game of Tetris that you're badly losing. We live in a world absolutely obsessed with speed, synchronization, and optimization. But what if I told you that the secret to true, groundbreaking innovation isn't found in perfectly optimized schedules, but is actually hidden inside the pauses, the delays, and the waiting? Today, we're exploring the architecture of the meantime and uncovering exactly how escaping the universal metronome unlocks what cognitive scientists call combinatorial creativity.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the tyranny of Chronos. Second, the constant contact trap. Third, detraining from clock time. Fourth, architecture of the meantime. And finally, piloting the meantime. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right in.
Section 1. The tyranny of Chronos. To really understand how to break free, we have to establish the baseline reality we all operate in, which is entirely subjugated by Chronos. This is the quantitative, highly sequential, unforgiving progression of measurable clock time. Think sprint schedules, Gantt charts, strict deadlines. It's the relentless execution cycle of a computer processor's arithmetic logic unit, literally the brain of the chip, or even the strict syllable timing you see in traditional Japanese language grids. We are just obsessed with entrainment, continuously forcing ourselves and our machines to synchronize perfectly to a rigid, unyielding metronome.
But here's the catch. True innovation? It actually requires us to tap into something entirely different known as kairos. Now, kairos is qualitative. It's that unplannable, opportune moment of situational flux, an event time that allows for real strategic breakthroughs and massive abductive leaps. But to get there, we literally have to detach momentarily from that ticking clock so we can deeply incubate our ideas.
And this sets up a huge philosophical clash that we face every single day. We're constantly trying to force the serendipitous, qualitative breakthroughs of kairos, which, absolutely require divergent thinking and detrainment, right into the quantifiable, relentless machinery of Chronos. We basically try to schedule our spontaneous eureka moments into a tight 2 p.m. calendar block, and, well, it just fundamentally doesn't work.
To put this clash into perspective, the math here is actually fascinating. Think about music production. Producers will often quantize notes, meaning they snap human performances perfectly to a digital grid. But if you make it perfectly mathematical, it sounds totally robotic and lifeless. Human ears actually need a tiny 2.5% deviation from that strict timeline to feel the groove. We crave structure, sure, but we absolutely require those small deviations to breathe real life into the work.
Section 2. The constant contact trap.
So let's look at how pushing Chronos to its absolute limit actually destroys our collective groove. We all kind of assume that always-on communication naturally breeds better ideas, right? We pack our days with back-to-back meetings, we keep Slack open like some sort of digital slot machine, and we just assume constant contact builds better solutions. But does it? The data reveals a massive paradox. There's this incredible Harvard study of 600 problem-solving groups, and it proved that constant contact actually causes premature cognitive convergence, meaning when everyone is always connected, people just rapidly copy the first decent idea they see, which leads to completely mediocre uniformity. On the flip side, totally isolated groups have high variation, but they miss out entirely on shared insights. So what's the sweet spot? Intermittent groups. They hit this perfect Goldilocks point, alternating periods of quiet, isolated incubation with just brief intervals of collective synchronization. Turns out the very best teams know exactly when to walk away from the group chat. And to make matters worse, this constant, rapid-fire connection is usually fueled by heavy, bloated graphical user interfaces. The legal scholar and technology historian Eben Moglen has this brilliant quote. He says, "We get the chimpanzee hitting buttons, but we chat with each other, it isn't as good." Basically, we've traded our profound, nuanced language for the act of pulling colorful levers for quick dopamine hits. When we operate like animals pulling levers just to keep up with the frantic pace of Chronos, we completely strip away the deep focus needed for actual invention. Section 3. Detraining from clock time. To break out of this trap, we have to completely rethink our relationship with time. Take leading pharmaceutical researchers, for example, who deal with highly complex innovation with literal billions of dollars on the line. In a study of drug discovery labs, researchers found 3 distinct responses to unexpected delays. First, there's entraining, just rushing to catch up to the schedule, which actually killed potential breakthroughs. But the scientists who succeeded did something else. Detraining. They momentarily detached. They intentionally sustained the temporal tension. That means they let that uncomfortable feeling of a delayed deadline just sit there, without panicking. They embraced the pause, questioned their deepest assumptions, and only then could they reframe the anomaly into a massive new discovery.
You see, detraining gives us the crucial latency we need for combinatorial creativity. Mark Twain beautifully described human invention as a mental kaleidoscope. You can't just invent brilliant things out of thin air. You have to take existing pieces of human knowledge and twist the perspective to form breathtaking new patterns. But twisting that mental kaleidoscope, that requires space. It takes time. It demands a deliberate rearrangement of ideas that simply cannot be rushed by a stopwatch.
Section 4, Architecture of the Meantime.
This brings us to the real synthesis of our explainer today. How do we actively design systems that protect these vital moments of latency? Well, in creative environments like music studios or software engineering, time exists in 3 dimensions. We all know plan time. That's your linear collective coordination. Assigned mean time is doing spontaneous parallel tasks to fill the gaps. But the absolute magic happens in idle mean time. Think of a developer waiting 10 minutes for their code to compile, or a designer waiting for a huge video file to render. Most organizations look at that indeterminate waiting, that material latency, and view it as waste to be optimized away. But no, it's a vital cognitive buffer. It's the exact breathing room you need to defocus, relax, and heavily incubate your next big solution.
We can actually see this architecture physically built right into modern Web3 systems. Take the new standard, ERC 7827. Think of it like a digital waiting room. Step 1, a promise is root anchored on the blockchain via last in, first out. Step 2, a human completes a task, their record of sweat, and cryptographically verifies it via ENS. Step 3, idle latency. It just waits. It sits there entirely decoupled from rigid clock time until step 4, when it finally triggers physical execution on a hardware device right on your desk like a cheerbot. It's this incredible tangible bridge between human intent and physical execution.
Section 5. Piloting the Meantime.
So how do we practically apply this to our daily work? How do we become masters of our own temporal architecture? First, we have to reclaim our tools. We need to abandon the attention-draining, probabilistic guessing of visual interfaces, what's often called the GUI miasma, where we're just passive tenants. Instead, we move to the lossless, explicit text of an agentic typewriter, like a command line interface. This builds a semiotic bridge, where your associative human imagination directly commands the deterministic machine. You become the sovereign pilot, totally free from constant notifications and visual bloat.
I'll leave you with this final thought. The machine sitting in front of you is really just a deterministic brush. It only does what you explicitly tell it to do. So you have a choice. Will you succumb to the visual illusions of the constant contact clock and be a passive passenger of Chronos? Or will you embrace the idle meantime, fiercely protect your latency, and become the sovereign pilot of your own Kairos? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.